Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap likes to write columns from time to time. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're only just very good. See, Sap, that's a compliment. That's a very nice compliment from me. I know you have one that either just came out or is just about to come out because it is the start of football season and we do a basketball podcast. You managed to get both of those things sort of intertwined. So what was the concept for this column, Sap?
Well, I know a lot of radio hosts hate like cross-sport references, so that makes me want to do them more often because I actually think they make sense, right? Like I love doing lookalikes and sound-alikes and all of that stuff. So I like to have fun with that kind of stuff. And I look at the NFL quarterbacks and have a comp in the NBA, a player who's accomplished similar things, kind of carries himself the same way, and is looked at by the public in the same vein. So I kind of wanted to do that, and I had some fun with it. And again, anytime I can get cross-sport references to irritate people that don't like it, then so be it.
Yeah, and I think it was obviously logical to do the cross-sport reference with football because the season kicked off this past weekend, and so the timing makes perfect sense. Sap, were you like scouring rosters and be like, who can I compare this guy to this guy? Or did it sort of just come like a light bulb in your head for each guy?
Oh, it came easily. I mean, most of these I've thought of for a long time. And obviously I want to go with megastars. So,
Right.
You pick like the top quarterbacks with the top players in basketball to really
right. No one cares who's could compare to Jacoby Myers or anything like that.
Right. Or,
no
Jared Goff.
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. Jared Goff is the so-and-so of the NFL, who's a comp for Jared Goff as a basketball player. Don't get me started. I'll probably end up thinking of someone. But obviously, I went right to the top with the greatest quarterback in NFL history, and Tom Brady, and who I think is the greatest basketball player in history. And people don't think he's the best. Most think he's second. There's some like Skip Bayless that think he's eighth, which is lunacy. But LeBron James, and the similarities are there in the sense that at an advanced age, they're still among the best players in their sport, but more so how much they put into their craft. And both players spend in excess of $2 billion a year on their bodies. They're all in. Like they've been around forever and they're all in and they want to win more championships. They're driven, but also the fact that when they come to a new organization, we saw that Brady last year in Tampa, changes the entire tone of that organization. As soon as Brady walked in the door, Tampa became a Super Bowl contender, not just because he's a great quarterback, but because of the way he carries himself. Look at what LeBron's done. He went to Cleveland right out of high school and made them contenders within a few years. Then he goes to Miami, wins 2 championships, goes back to Cleveland, wins a championship, goes to LA, a place that the Lakers hadn't made the playoffs in 6 years, and they won a championship in the second year. So I think there's parallels there. Now, the Brady Bobos or the Jordan Bobos, and there are a ton of them out there, are going to say, no, you can't put LeBron up there with Jordan or Brady, but I just did.
Yeah. Wow. You really, just spat right in their faces, Sap. I mean, I think I can see the comparison. To me, the most obvious one is the longevity of both of those guys in terms of not just how long their careers have been, but how long they've been the best player in their league. Obviously being the best player doesn't mean you win the MVP every year. Nobody does that. So, Brady will have a year where he wins the MVP. He'll have a 4-year stretch where he doesn't. Same with LeBron. But obviously Brady won a Super Bowl last year. He has a better chance of reaching the Super Bowl as Ben Simmons does of hitting one free throw. We've talked about this before. And LeBron James has been to 10 NBA finals, Sap?
Yeah, I get told that a lot. 4 and 6 in the finals, which some people think is a bad thing. I think if you go to 10 finals, that's quite an accomplishment. 4 and 6 in the NBA finals is better than 4 and 0.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the amount of times that they've reached the final round is obviously a direct comparison there. And then you can talk about, too, how they're both the most popular and the least popular players in their respective sports, which is usually how it goes. With Jordan, I don't know that there was a least popular side to it.
No, people were frightened of him. Not only players that played against him, I think the fans were frightened of him. Like, I'm not going to boo Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is at a different level than everyone. And I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
LeBron,
So we can take him out of the equation.
But I think LeBron is the better basketball player. That's what I've always said. I didn't say that LeBron's had the impact that Jordan had. No one has. Jordan made the sport what it is today globally. I mean, the man makes $160 million a year just from Nike, just by lending his name. I never go there, but I do say as a pure basketball player, I think he's better. But the other thing, too, with Brady and LeBron, now the differences are that they came from different places. I mean, LeBron at 16 was on ESPN playing high school basketball, and Brady wasn't heavily recruited at all, got one of the last scholarships to Michigan, was in and out of the lineup at Michigan, was a 6th-round pick. And, we all remember the pictures from the pro day or from the combine in 2000 where he looked like a guy that you were going to say, son, I think it's time to go to graduate school and maybe you can be an accountant or something. LeBron was completely different, but where they started from and where they've ended, they both had the same work ethic and discipline that made them as great as they are. The talent, obviously, but they also had a lot of those other things. I mean, Tom Brady is older than 13 of the 32 NFL head coaches. I mean, that just blows my mind. He's older than his own offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich. Just staggering. I mean, LeBron's been, I think, the best player in basketball since 2007, 2008. I think maybe he ceded the crown last year to Giannis, but he can get that crown back if the Lakers go ahead and win another title. So they're both still motivated to win, but they've also branched out to build their brands. So I think they're the two biggest athletes in American sports right now. And I think Mahomes is, on the verge of entering that because, he's a very charismatic guy.
Brady
but he's
retires.
If he ever decides to retire. Yeah. I mean, remember the argument a few years ago and I was on the wrong side of this. It was like, would you trade Brady for Andrew Luck? Like I was like, absolutely, because Andrew Luck's 15 years younger and he's going to be around forever. Andrew Luck's been gone for 3 years.
Yeah.
Since Andrew Luck retired, Brady has won 2 Super Bowls. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Again, it's about sort of longevity and how long they've been at the top of the mountain. And it's hard to. You're saying Giannis might be the best player in basketball right now. I would agree. That's fine. But LeBron's still in the conversation. He's at the top of the conversation. And until really he retires, he's going to remain there. Mm-hmm. Brady's the same
Brady,
thing.
Right?
It's like, but they've blocked guys, like Aaron Rodgers has individually in a single season been considered the best player. But I think for the most part, talk about other guys, Peyton Manning, Lamar Jackson, whoever the hell you want to talk about.
Patrick Mahomes, he's beaten him twice in the playoffs.
They've been blocked by Brady just as Kevin Durant has been blocked by LeBron James. Until they hang it up, because I just don't see either one of them playing up to a point where they actively suck. I don't see Brady being Brett Favre, at the end of his career, and I don't see LeBron James being Michael Jordan is still pretty damn good at the end of his career. I know Hakeem Olajuwon, let's just say, who was just washed up, at the end of his career.
Yeah,
I just don't see that. So until they leave, they decide to. It's hard for another person to really make that clear vault and say, I am the face of this league.
Part of it is because they work so damn hard, off the court or off the field to be in the best condition. Part of it is that they play with their mind. I mean, I think LeBron is in the discussion of the smartest basketball player ever. Bird, Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, throw all the names out there. Brady certainly plays with his mind more than his body at this point. I think he is in the discussion the smartest quarterback ever. So they're both intellectually so far advanced that they can still perform when their bodies aren't quite right, but their bodies are normally right because they take good care of themselves. And also they are both playing in an era where they can play longer. The games, the sports have changed, right? I mean, there isn't as much physicality in the NBA as there was in the 80s, where Larry Bird was fighting with Bill Laimbeer and they were throwing punches at each other and people were getting slammed to the court. And, Robert Parrish threw punches against Bill Laimbeer and didn't even get ejected from that game. It's different now in the NBA and certainly in football. I mean, just Google Terry Bradshaw, Joe Turkey Jones. It was a play in 1976. The play was over. Joe Turkey Jones picked up Terry Bradshaw and dumped him on his head. Like it was a 15-yard penalty. That's it. If that happened today, the defensive player would be thrown out of the league, and it would be the lead story on the nightly news. Then it was like, yeah, that's what happened. So they're also able to benefit from the times they play, but they take advantage of that. I think it's a good comparison. You wouldn't think of it that way because LeBron's this athletic specimen, but Brady's a much better athlete than people want to admit, because what's needed to play that position, he uses as an athletic ability perfectly. Like for a guy that doesn't run that fast, he moves greatly in the pocket as well as anyone I've ever seen.
Quick twitch muscles. Exactly. And also they did this during the game on Thursday, the Buccaneers season opener against the Cowboys. He actually has a faster release now than he did earlier in his career. That's athleticism, being able to get a ball off that quickly. I mean, can he run super fast in a straight line? I mean, faster than you and me, but compared to other quarterbacks, no. I mean, Lamar Jackson, if they ran a 100-yard dash, would be able to go back and forth and beat Tom Brady. But they're both. Yeah, Brady is a phenomenal athlete. He obviously is. I mean, anybody who says otherwise doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. The most stark difference is what you mentioned, Sap, is where they came from. But at this point, 20 years into each of their careers, that doesn't really matter anymore. If you're comparing them now, we're not comparing them when they were in high school, because obviously it's a stark difference. But now I think it's an apt comparison. So I know your next one has to do with your favorite player in the NFL. And a guy who you think is the greatest scorer of all time in the NBA. So comparing Kevin Durant to your guy, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think it's a great comparison. Not to toot my own horn, but look, I think Aaron Rodgers is the greatest thrower of the football ever. That includes Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, whatever. Watching him throw the football is art. I think he is the greatest passer of the football. I think his total package as a quarterback is unsurpassed. Now, that doesn't make him a better quarterback than Tom Brady. These are different arguments. Kevin Durant, to me, is the most unstoppable scorer in the history of the sport. I don't know of another player who is an elite shooter and an elite scorer. Normally, you're one. Steph Curry's a great shooter, but not necessarily an unstoppable scorer. Kevin Durant, 7 feet tall, can shoot from anywhere on the court. He's unstoppable. Aaron Rodgers can throw every single pass you can think of on a football field at any distance, accurately off a different platform. So I think they're very similar in that, but they're also chasing someone in their era who is better, maybe not more skillful, but better. Brady to Rodgers, LeBron to Durant. So they're kind of chasing that. They're both very prickly, right? I mean, we both agree on that. Neither is a great leader, right? I think they're prone to kind of like shake their head and be in disgust with maybe teammates or the situation they're in. I don't think, and look, I love Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's a foxhole guy. Like if the things aren't going well, he seems to like just bail out. Durant, I think, shown a little bit more of that leadership ability, but he did bail out of Oklahoma City, right? So you can hold that against him if you want. And then he just left Golden State for, I don't know why, because he was in a great situation. They're similar in that sense. I think they have very passive aggressive behavior, but they're also have tin ears. They just like hear everything. They're constantly, in Durant's case, fighting on social media. Rodgers not so much with that, but he hears everything. He's constantly kind of pushing back. He obviously knows what's being said about him. So I think they're both very similar in that sense.
Yeah, I really love the that they're chasing that guy thing comparison. I think is perfect, because I think
and they both think they're better than those guys.
Because I do think that affects a lot of their personality and how they go about their business, and whether they'd want to admit it or not. Ever, we've heard stories about Kevin Durant being actively upset that people don't view him as over LeBron, especially when the Warriors beat the Cavaliers in the finals. But I mean, look at the two rosters. Of course, they were going to meet the Cavaliers in the finals. Nobody outside of Kevin Durant thought that was a fair fight. So, yeah, I think that's that speaks a lot about who they are, and especially the presentation that they put out publicly is the fact that Rodgers has been chasing Brady for a long time and will never catch him at this point. That ship sailed, and Durant will never catch LeBron. It's not going to happen. And nobody is going to, other than themselves, anoint them over that person. And I think that's a really hard thing for someone who knows how good they are and spends so much time doing it, to not be able to get to a certain level. almost through no fault of their own, is a really hard thing to come to grips with. And I think that does make you prickly.
Yeah, and I think you see that, and I'll bring up an individual sport like tennis. Like we've seen three phenomenal players, the three best players of the Open era playing at the same time: Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic. Now, I think Federer is the greatest of the three. They all have 20 Grand Slam major titles. So go have a discussion, whatever you want. But most of the public, most of the media thinks that in order, it's Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. Now, Djokovic came close to surpassing them. If he had won the U.S. Open last week, he would have got his 21st major and would have had the calendar Grand Slam, which no one has done since 1969. But people always put Djokovic third, and I think he resents that. So he's kind of a prickly sort, where Federer is the guy everybody loves, and Nadal's the guy everybody loves and kind of respects as well. So I think you see that, with the guy who's second. And I guarantee you Rodgers thinks he's better than Brady. I guarantee you Durant thinks he's better than LeBron. And you know what? I would expect them to feel that way because they're the second best at what they do, right? So they're close,
I think
but
that's
they're not quite
really
there.
hard.
And
I think
and you
it's
have
a lot
to be
easier to be like the 10th best, because you're like, okay,
yeah.
I know, like, I'm great, but like, I realistically, I can never, to be so close, to be two, that silver medal person. I do think it explains a lot of their personalities. I'm not excusing some of the things that Rodgers has said or done, or that Durant has done and fought with, people with 6 followers on Twitter. I don't agree with that. I think it's silly. But I do think from a psychological perspective, I do think that's a very, very difficult thing to deal with, especially for the athletes who spend their whole lives with a goal in mind and training. And like Durant has gotten to the absolute peak of what his talents have. And that's if LeBron hadn't been around, everybody would be saying Durant's been the best player of this era. And same with Rodgers and Brady. Like, I think that's a hard thing for an athlete who at every level has been the best to suddenly be the second best. I think is really, really difficult to come to grips with psychologically.
It really is. You're better off being Dak Prescott, who's like the 8th best quarterback or the 9th best quarterback. No one in their right mind's ever going to compare Dak Prescott to Tom Brady. But people have compared Rodgers to Brady.
Might, I don't know.
Skip Bayless may, and he's got obviously Rodgers behind like Jay Cutler. But, with Rodgers, there was a time, I thought in like 2014, that he surpassed Brady as a quarterback. And look, if they recover an onside kick and play the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year and beat them, maybe we're going in that direction. But when one guy has 7 and one guy has 1, you can't really have that discussion, especially since they just played last year in the NFC Championship game. And Brady wasn't great in that game, but he won. Rodgers missed some throws, including an opportunity maybe to run it in and tie the game late in regulation. Didn't happen. But it almost feels like, I'm not a golfer. I know you're not a golfer, but I talk to golfers that when you get to the point where you can't get any better, it gets really frustrating. Like if say you have a 10 handicap and that's the best you could be, that's when you decide I got to just throw the clubs away because I can't get any better.
There's a point of no return
with anything
in
you do.
Sport. You can only you can't keep getting better. You can keep getting better and better and better for a while, but there is a peak. There's not like there is a cap on how good you can get in anything. It's not sport in life, and a job or something like that. There's not an unlimited, window for improvement with everything. And certainly Rodgers and Durant, I think, have, to their credit, reached that peak. But it's just like, I think that's really hard, again, to do that and put in all the work and still be looked at as second best and be like, I can't, there's nothing I can do about this. I think I'm better. The public perception doesn't. And we know, again, like you said, they have rabbit ears. They know that people think that they're the second best. And I think that is really, really hard. And I do think it explains a lot of their personalities.
Yeah. No, they're very similar in that sense. So I think that was a good comparison. I think an obvious comparison of the great quarterback with the basketball player is Patrick Mahomes and Steph Curry. Like, you ask any 10-year-old. Entertainment value, kind of the way they carry themselves, their charisma. It almost seems like they're floating as they're playing, right? Like Mahomes just looks like he's playing in slippers, like he's just carefree and throwing the ball 50 yards downfield and completing touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill. And then there's Steph Curry hitting 38-footers as if it's a layup. And just ask any 10-year-old who their favorite football player is. It's Patrick Mahomes. Ask any 10-year-old who their favorite basketball player is. Mostly it's going to be Steph Curry. Because with Curry, at least the player's relatable. No one can shoot like that, but he's only 6'3". He looks like the dad next door.
And scrawny,
And he's 185 pounds maybe. He looks like the guy next door. LeBron is a superhero. right? I mean, it's 6'9", 260.
Right.
Mahomes is kind of the superhero as a quarterback, but the entertainment value of Mahomes and Curry, I think, are so similar because, and I think a lot of people that like Rodgers like Durant, right? And if you like Brady, you probably like LeBron because you respect the accomplishment. So I think that's a good comparison as well. Mahomes, who does things on the football field, you go, holy crap, I didn't think that was possible. Looks like a video game, and Curry obviously does that quite often on a basketball court.
Yeah, they're the guys who you get the text from your friend about and saying, "Hey, turn on the TV. Look what
Right.
Mahomes is doing right now, or look what Steph Curry is doing right now."
Yeah.
Because that just from a sheer entertainment value, I get it. The one thing I would push back on with this comparison, and I do think it's a good comparison, is I do think that, and people are getting carried away with it. People are saying, Patrick Mahomes could end up being the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't think anybody's ever said Steph Curry could end up being the greatest basketball player of all time.
No. Greatest shooter. Right.
Yeah.
Greatest shooter without question. So,
but I'm not crazy, right? Some people have been saying that about Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, sure. I mean, every morning on full press coverage, I talk with Ian Glendon.
Ian hates that. The Patrick Mahomes thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he doesn't even, want to acknowledge it. But and Ian and I go back on quarterbacks because I still think it's entertainment. Like I think Rodgers is eminently more entertaining to watch than Brady. Just because what he does on the sideline oftentimes is comical.
Brady's surgical.
Brady's surgical. It's like you can appreciate it. It's almost like I'm trying to compare. Let me compare it to actors, okay? Jack Nicholson is a great actor. So is Robert Duvall, right? Robert Duvall's technically as great an actor as we've ever had, but Nicholson's more entertaining than Robert Duvall, right? So that's the similar thing I get with, say, Mahomes or Rodgers compared to Brady. And so I'm still more about entertainment than anything. I mean, because this should be fun. It's entertaining. Brady's surgical. I mean, you just can't. The accomplishments are like mind blowing. Like every time I think of things he's done, I'm like, this makes no sense. Like it doesn't. We're never going to see this again. So. Yeah, you're right, though. There are people. Mahomes may have the best skill set of anybody that's ever played quarterback, but, you still have to go out there and accomplish things.
Well, I think with Brady, too, it's like a feeling of inevitability. Like, okay, he has the ball 2 minutes. I know what's going to happen. Like,
we knew that the other night, yeah.
With Mahomes, not so much because, like, he might turn the ball over, but it's like, what's he going to do next? What haven't I seen before that he's going to do? Steph Curry is somewhat similar. Like, is he going to pull up from half court? Like, I think with a lot of the guys you've seen for so long, like LeBron, like Brady, like you come to, it's an inevitable feeling. Like, okay, again, LeBron's not a great 3-point shooter. I've talked about this before, but when he takes a 3-pointer at the end of the game, I feel like it's inevitable it's going to go in. That's how I feel because I've seen it a bunch of times.
Right.
When Brady has the ball with 2 minutes left, down by 3, I know what's going to happen. I've seen it a million times. That was the same, exactly what happened in the season opener against the Cowboys.
Oh, you knew they were going to go down.
You knew it was going to happen.
So it wasn't even a doubt. Yeah.
So it's inevitable, but inevitable is a synonym, I guess, sort of for predictable, which is a good thing if you want your quarterback to be predictably great.
Exactly. Yeah.
But from entertainment value, I get it. Yeah, Mahomes and Curry are a blast to watch. So it makes sense there. And Sap, the last one you gave me. Was a comparison of the reigning Finals MVP Giannis and Lamar Jackson, a former MVP in his own right, quarterback.
Yeah, because they do things differently, and we wonder, can they win doing it the way they do it? Like in a league that's so dependent on 3-point shooting, Giannis is not a good 3-point shooter. He struggled at the free throw line, to say the least. Last year, especially in the postseason, until Game 6 of the finals when he went 17 for 19. We know that Lamar Jackson runs the ball better than any quarterback we've ever seen. He is probably the most explosive weapon in the NFL, but can he beat you from the pocket? Is he an accurate enough passer? I haven't seen the growth there as a pure passer. So there's the comparison there. Now, Giannis broke through by sheer will, and I think that Lamar Jackson has a lot of the same qualities that Giannis has, in that he's a very hard worker. He wants to win. He's a very competitive guy, but throwing a football, you can work on it as much as you want. Accuracy is difficult to continue to improve on. Like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady could probably not touch a football for 3 months and they could still be accurate. It's in their DNA. They're really good at that. Lamar Jackson has to work at it, and he can only get so good. Kind of like Giannis can take 1,000 shots a day. He's never going to be an accomplished three-point shooter.
Right.
He can get better, but he's not going to be Steph Curry. Like, he can't work to be Steph Curry. But I think they're similar in that they do things so uniquely that we want to see if they can, like, get to the finish line and win. Well, we saw that with Giannis. Are we going to see that with Lamar Jackson? The only problem I have with
that's the
Lamar
expectation. After you win an MVP, you're expected to win a Super Bowl.
It was a unanimous MVP. That doesn't happen very often in the NFL. The thing about Lamar I worry about is how long can his career last? Because he takes shots. Russell Wilson is elusive, but Russell Wilson is a former baseball player as well who knows how to slide and get out of bounds. Mahomes does that. Kyler Murray does that because they all have a baseball background. Lamar gets hit. I mean, even that Monday night game against the Raiders, he got nailed a couple of times. And
he runs way more than those guys too. I mean, as much as those guys do run, but he runs. I mean, they run him a lot.
He ran the ball 12 times for 86 yards. I mean, that's incredible. That's a great night
that's
for a
low.
Running back.
That's low carries for him.
Yeah, you see 15, 18 carries, over 100 yards. I mean, I think he was 5th in the league in rushing 2 years ago from a quarterback. That's insane.
Yeah,
and he takes hits.
I think an interesting comparison too with the two guys is that there's a reason neither one of them was the top pick in their respective draft, is that they were both viewed as projects. And strangely enough, Lamar Jackson, even though Giannis is the more accomplished of the two players, Lamar Jackson came together a little bit faster than Giannis did.
Right.
So I think that's interesting in that there's still works in progress. But Giannis now clearly has broken through. I mean, we just saw the finals where he had his best game in his career in the clinching game, which is a remarkable accomplishment. And Lamar Jackson has fallen short in the playoffs before. So, it's
which
a good
Giannis
comparison.
did up until this year, though.
Yeah.
Up until this year, Giannis fell short. Yeah.
So up until this year, that's the only thing. It doesn't blow up the comparison by any means, but it makes it a little bit more tricky because Giannis did finally break through, and now the onus is on Lamar Jackson to do the same thing.
Here's the thing, Jet. You can be the best player in basketball without being a great three-point shooter, because Giannis is unstoppable down low, similar to the way Shaq was unstoppable down low. We'll make a case that in the early 2000s, Shaq was the best player in basketball. He didn't even attempt three-pointers. He struggled at the free throw line, but he was still the best player in the sport because he was unstoppable within 3-4 feet of the basket. You can't be the best quarterback and be average as a passer.
Right, which
he is, especially in the pocket. So that's a concern. Can he get better? I haven't seen that much of a growth from him as a pure pocket passer. The other things I love the player. I mean, personally, I love Lamar. He seems like a great dude. His teammates love him. He works his butt off. He's invested. Like, this guy really wants to be a great player, but that's a skill set that, you may never really reach. And that's just the way it works. So that's where the comparison is a little bit different, because Giannis can go ahead and do what he does and still be the best player. Lamar's going to have to become better as a passer to become the best quarterback.
Yeah, and all the guys we talked about prior on both sides, Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, LeBron, Durant, Steph, all have won championships. Giannis now has won a championship. Lamar being the lone exception on that list who hasn't won a championship. And if you're considered an elite quarterback, then your team has Super Bowl aspirations. Period. It's same for if you're in that upper echelon of NBA players. We've talked about this before. There's not many. There's a lot of star players. There's not a lot of superstar players. And if you're at that superstar level where you've won MVPs, in the case of Giannis, he's won multiple MVPs. The expectation is you're competing for and winning a championship. It's the same for a quarterback who wins an MVP. Mm-hmm. So Giannis cashed in. All the expectations were finally delivered upon. And so now, for Lamar Jackson, he has to try to do the same thing. But, to Giannis's credit, he did, in fact, he caught some breaks in the playoffs with injuries and stuff, without a doubt. But few teams that have won the title have not gotten some breaks. And so now, Giannis is in that tier where we're saying you could certainly consider him the best player in basketball right now. And I don't think anybody would make the case that Lamar Jackson is the best player in football right now.
No, I mean, I would say quarterbacks I would take over Lamar Jackson right now would be obviously Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. Those are like the 4 best quarterbacks in football. Josh Allen, look, he had one great year. Lamar's had a couple of great years. You know how high I am on Justin Herbert. I think he's going to be better than most of these guys. Not the top 4 I talked about, but the next
Well, I know
level,
you love Trevor Lawrence too. Who's a
I
rookie,
do.
obviously.
I just, once they can get rid of Urban Meyer, that might help the situation in Jacksonville, because I get the feeling he's going to leave Jacksonville in midseason. Like, I don't know if you want to have Urban Meyer and Aaron Rodgers get together and just bail out
Urban Meyer's a
on
flake.
everybody. Oh, of course he is. I mean, it's also the first time he doesn't have more talent than the other team he's facing. That's the thing that college coaches have to learn in the NFL. Nick Saban had to learn it, and he lasted 2 years in Miami, went back to college. In the NFL, it's a 50-50 proposition who has more talent on the field. In college, Urban Meyer always had more talent.
You can't just
than
bully
the
the other teams.
No, you got to actually coach. Now you have less talent. You have to do well there. So I like a lot of. I love Justin Fields. I love quarterbacks, and I kind of root for all of them, because I think it's the most intriguing position in all of sports. I mean, it's the most important position in all sports. But while you were watching the Patriots game on Sunday against Miami, and I was watching the Packers, if that was a game, against the New Orleans Saints, the Packers lost 38-3. You were texting me that, is Rodgers going to be Kyrie Irving this year in Green Bay? And you were alluding to Kyrie in his second season, his final season with the Celtics, kind of blew it all up. And you think that Rodgers might do the same thing in Green Bay?
That's my 1-to-1 comparison, Sap, is Kyrie Irving and Aaron Rodgers. Spectacular talents, very odd personalities. Rodgers, we knew, coming into the season, was pissed about his situation. We didn't know so much Kyrie was pissed about his situation in Boston. It was sort of like backhanded. He kind of stabbed the team in the back. But he blew the team up from the inside and then took a blowtorch to them once he left. I do wonder if this part of the resentment of Aaron Rodgers in this situation right now is trying to blow the team up internally. You know the guy much better than I do, because you followed him a whole lot more closely. But that was a stark loss that they had.
Yeah, without question. I mean, part of it had to do with, you didn't have David Bakhtiari, your all-pro left tackle, who's out till the middle of the season. He is recovering from knee surgery, blew out his knee late in the season. Also, you don't have Corey Linsley, who's an all-pro center, who's now playing for the Chargers. So their offensive line is in flux right now, and that will impact Aaron Rodgers. But I think here's the thing. You can't have a quarterback that has one foot out the door. Like, we kind of saw it with Brady in 2019, and as great as Brady is, he's the greatest quarterback ever. We saw it kind of go bad with the Patriots in 2019. Now, again, because of their program, because of their coaching staff, they still went 12-4, but then they were bounced out in the wild card game against Tennessee. But that season didn't feel right, especially the second half of the year when they went 4-4 in the regular season, lost to Miami as a 17-point favorite in week 17, which blew a home field advantage. They would have been the second seed.
That was brutal.
That was brutal. So instead of having a bye, they then had to play Tennessee, which beat you in the wild card game. And that was Brady. Right. I mean, Brady handles this stuff better than Rodgers. And now you got Rodgers, who's got one foot out the door. That's not the sport to play if you're thinking about retirement. And even in the offseason, when he had that initial press conference a month ago, when he got to training camp, he talked about it. He was 50-50 on retiring. That is the one sport you can't be 50-50 on retiring. Maybe basketball, you can. Even then you shouldn't. But and you kind of get the feeling Kyrie Irving, back to your comparison, probably thinks that way too. But you can't do that in football. That's not the sport to play at 50-50.
Sap, that leads kind of a little bit more into your Aaron Rodgers, Kevin Durant comparison, is that, that whole last year in Detroit, he had one foot. Not Detroit. Jesus. God, that's a mess.
They only wish.
In Golden State. He was 1 foot out the door, and they ultimately, it could have been because injuries, probably the most likely, but they did lose in the NBA Finals there, and they were favored, all season long.
You can kind of pull that off in basketball, because LeBron had 1 foot out the door many
everywhere
times, right? Everywhere he's been, and yet, they still had a nice run in 2010. I know they lost the Celtics
but
it
ended poorly. Ended poorly. All the 1 foot out the door things. His last season in Miami, they lost. His last season, the first time around in Cleveland, they lost. His last season, the second time around in Cleveland, they lost.
Yeah, but they at least got to the finals in the last year in Miami.
Yeah, I don't know where the
and
Packers
Cleveland
are going to end up this year.
Yeah, I mean, and because you could kind of pull that off in basketball, because you just here's LeBron. Now LeBron's better at his sport than Rodgers is at his, which
it's part of it's the length of the seasons, right? You can coast in basketball and football. Every game is important.
Every game counts, and the quarterbacks. He sets the tone. I mean, LeBron sets the tone wherever he is, but the quarterback has to set the tone. I mean, if he looks like he doesn't give a crap, then the rest of the guys are like, he doesn't give a crap. Why should I? So, look, is there a potential that he gets traded at the trade deadline? I mean, who knows? I mean, I think Green Bay is going to have to realize he doesn't want to be here. Like, the more he plays, he's going to maybe hurt his trade value, especially when he's talking about, I'm 50-50 on retiring. If you're the Denver Broncos, which is the rumored place that he's going to be next year, are you going to send the Packers 2 or 3 first-round picks and some players for a guy who's 50-50 on playing, who's going to be 38 years old next year? Like, he may, in the middle of the season, he may just say, you know what, I'm going to go host Jeopardy, or I'm going to play the ukulele, or I'm going to play my guitar. I mean, he's got a lot of other interests.
Right, and Kyrie might do.
Like Kyrie's the same thing. They're both flight risks. And the thing, too, with and back to the Rodgers-Durant comparison is, look, Rodgers isn't married. I know he's engaged to the actress, I forget what her name is, but he's engaged. He doesn't have kids. I don't know what Durant, if he's engaged, married, with someone, has kids. I don't know anything about it. They don't have that foundation that, say, LeBron and Brady have, right? Like, LeBron has 3 kids that he's very involved with, has a wife that he's been with forever. We know Brady's family situation. LeBron's very close with his mother. We know that Brady's very close with his parents and his sisters. Aaron Rodgers doesn't talk to his brothers
his family
or parents. Doesn't even talk to
weird.
them. So, and I don't know what, I'm sure Durant is still very close with his mom. I mean, in fact, I saw in Game 7 against Milwaukee, she embraced him after the game. So that's great. Rodgers doesn't even have that. Like, he's a man on an island. I get the impression with Rodgers, if you piss him off once, you talk about grudges, you'd probably hit it off with him, because he seems to be a grudge holder. So that part of it isn't good either. And you compare that
Rodgers
to Russell.
Love football, Sep, do you think?
I think he does. I think he's a football savant. I mean, his
I don't think Kyrie loves basketball.
I think Rodgers does. I think
likes it, but I think he has interests that exceed. Like, Brady's main interest is football. It always has been. LeBron's main interest is basketball. Always has been.
Yeah. Same thing with Jordan and Kobe and all these guys, and I think with Durant, Durant's a gym rat. Like,
Durant loves basketball. No question.
I think Rodgers maybe is falling out of love with football a little bit. And I think part of it is that he's frustrated. He feels that he needed more help in Green Bay. Now, look, last year I thought they had the best team, so that's on him. Maybe were other years where they came up short, but he has to play better in those big games. He's been below average in NFC Championship games, Jed. He's played in 5 NFC Championship games, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Even the one he won, he wasn't all that good. They beat the Bears back in 2010. 21-14, the deciding touchdown was B.J. Raji, with an interception, returned 15 yards, a 320-pound nose tackle from BC. Yeah. Prior to BC, intercepted the pass and ran it in. That put them up 21-7. They won 21-14. He was great in the Super Bowl. Like, his blind spot is the NFC Championship game. That's not good. That's where you get to the Super Bowl if you win. So, he could have played better in last year's NFC Championship game, and he didn't. So he's got, and Durant now is really stepping up in big moments, right? I mean, even in losing that series against Milwaukee, it was like, holy crap, Kevin Durant was awesome. Whereas with Rodgers, you go, he could have been better. So I think he still loves football. He just needs to change the scenery. But who's going to go ahead and make that move, knowing that next year he's going to be 38 in December, and he's talking about retiring. Like Bill Parcells famously said, in this sport, if you're talking about retiring, you've retired.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting.
It's a good quote. Seth,
but I love your.
This is the last one. Thank you.
But the Kyrie Irving Rodgers one is great, because I think they both love to hear themselves speak. Like, Rodgers is great at the microphone. Again, Jimmy Johnson on the Fox pregame show nailed it. He said he is the most interesting man in the NFL. He certainly is. Like, I don't find Russell Wilson interesting. He is like corny, hokey,
other than the
whatever.
hot wife. Very attractive.
He's got a hot wife. He's got a hot wife. Holy crap. he's a great player, but he's very, talk about a guy who has a manufactured personality.
Yeah.
Rodgers is like the guy you just, okay, Rodgers would probably spit at you if he saw you, which people respect more than the phony guy. But Russell Wilson handled his up and down off season much better. They resolved whatever issues they had, and he's still ending every press conference with "Go Hawks." Now, again, that's manufactured, hokey, whatever. Rodgers is, ending. It seems like every press conference is
go the Packers, right?
Yeah, I mean that 30-minute press conference was just. I was watching it live, and I'm like, this is first of all incredible. And the problem with Rodgers is he did that. Now you did that to start a training camp, get it out of the way, right? Like that's it. He's continued on with it. He goes on every Tuesday with Pat McAfee and relitigates this.
He's miserable there.
And then he was with Aaron Andrews on the Fox pregame show, and he continues on with it again. It's like, okay, you got it out of your system. Like we criticized Bill Belichick for saying, this is the time I'm going to talk about. Remember Aaron Hernandez in 2013? He had that statement, that press conference, and at the end of it said, that's it. Just no more questions. With Rodgers, it's like, yeah, please ask me about this suck place. I'll
which it again. Again goes to the Kevin Durant comparison where he can't help himself with the criticisms he sees online. He can't help himself. Like, why are you getting engaged with this person? Why are you can't help himself? I don't think Rodgers can either. I don't think Durant. I think Durant has a more shy personality than Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he loves doing the media stuff so much.
Oh, Rodgers loves it.
But Durant loves the social media part of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Rodgers loves the traditional media part of it. If you want to call it.
He's great
at
a microphone. All the people that cover him in Green Bay love him because the one thing you'll notice about him, he never shies away from a question. He never gets irritated with a question either. Like they asked him pretty tough questions at that press conference. Like, Aaron, you wanted these guys to stay here. Well, look at what they've done since they left. Those would have been bad moves. And he addressed them. Like other guys would have, walked off or been pissed off. So he's great in front of the microphone. I don't know if he'll be doing that. He wants to host Jeopardy. That kind of explains it.
Last question for you, Sap. who is Ben Simmons?
Ooh,
I was thinking
that's a great one.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Jameis Winston.
Yeah, but see, Jimmy G and Jameis Winston have good personalities. Like Jameis Winston, look, I was not rooting for him Sunday against the Packers, but I was kind of happy for him. Right, because
what a weird stat line: 150 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I know, 5 touchdowns. That's being efficient, isn't it? I mean, it speaks how bad the Green Bay defense. Yeah, that's odd. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm just thinking of a quarterback who looks like he doesn't really want to be out there. Like Jimmy G just can't stay healthy. When he's healthy, I mean, his record as a starter is 27-9. That's like Brady-esque. He wins like 3 out of every 4 games. There you go. And they both. Wentz left Philadelphia. And Simmons is going to be leaving Philadelphia. Tough cities to play in. You got it. You nailed it. It's Carson Wentz. Yeah, just a guy who kind of burst onto the scene. Is kind of like freakishly talented, right? And Carson Wentz like 6'5".
That was your guy a couple of years ago.
That was the heir apparent. So hopefully I don't jinx my new man Justin Herbert. But like Carson Wentz like 6'5", 250 and can run like the wind and has a great arm. But he doesn't have the leadership ability, and he's kind of an odd duck and is very sensitive. And that's it. That's a good one.
You want to put that?
The city to be like that.
Make a footnote at the end of the column and add that.
I will have to do that. I don't know how to do that, but I'll try.
That's for free, Sap. That's gratis.
Thank you, Jet. Thank you, Jet.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. What's that other thing we wanted to talk about though before we ended that?
You wanted to know what
you're the only person that knows what this is. What is it?
You wanted to know what an Exhibit 10 contract was, which if you're hearing about that right now is when those get signed right before training camp. Basically, it's a training camp invite with like a bonus, like a $50K bonus to see if you can convert them to a 2-way contract, which means you can play X amount of games in the NBA and the rest you have to play in the G League. It's basically a very minimal contract to get a look at somebody in training camp.
Okay.
That's the extent of it. And you can then convert it to a different type of contract with guaranteed money to the 2-way, which is what if you're a Celtics fan, that's what Taco Fall the first year was playing and was a 2-way contract where he played most of his games in the G League. You have a finite amount of games he's allowed to dress for in the NBA, not get playing time for, dress for, period. It doesn't matter if he plays or not. That's what a 2-way contract is. So these Exhibit 10s oftentimes lead to that. It's basically like a cheap look at a player in training camp.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
All right,
that's
sounds good.
that.
Now I understand it.
Yeah, it's confusing, and it's like because it's not a traditional contract. It's for guys who are mostly who've played overseas or were undrafted, who are not the cream of the crop. But you want to get a look at them, so you're sort of paying a couple 10, 20, $30,000 for the right for them to come into training camp exclusively for your team.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that
So there
makes
you go,
sense now.
Sap. I don't think that the Lakers will be caring very much about these Exhibit 10 guys.
No. Who's the latest player that may show up on the Lakers? It's just I've lost track.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, but
I know.
Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. I mean,
John Wall might get bought out, so maybe John Wall goes there too.
They need a fourth backup point guard.
Watch, John Wall's going to get bought out, and he'll go to either the Nets or the Lakers, and people are going to lose their shit again. We'll talk about that later in the week.
I'll tell you what, though, if John Wall
there.
goes to the Lakers, could you see a backcourt of John Wall and Russell Westbrook together?
It'd be very athletic.
It'd be very athletic, entertaining, and they couldn't shoot, but it would be very interesting.
Yeah. So it would be terrible shooting backcourt. Holy crap. All right, Sap. Well, that's going to do it for. I had a lot of fun doing the cross sport comparisons. It's nice to talk football sometimes too, even though we are a basketball show. We do love football, so. And I know a lot of our listeners are big football fans as well. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. Make sure that you find our podcast wherever podcasts are found, the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Just type it in. We are right there. Anywhere podcasts are found, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, I think is the easiest on your phone to just do it right there. And you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/JetStryer. @JetStryer is my Twitter, and @JohnSap25 is Sap's Twitter for all of his columns and polls and show updates. Make sure you check out that. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you later. See ya.